The stars were silent the night the Pantheon appeared. No streak of fire announced their arrival. No thunder rolled across the sky. They simply were, suddenly and completely, 5 colossal monoliths descending from the blackness of space like spears of divine judgment. They were not ships, not in the way humans understood ships. They were floating cathedrals of light, angular towers that stretched for miles, each radiating a golden glow that turned the night sky into dawn. The world saw them in unison, every camera, every phone, every satellite. For a heartbeat, there was silence. And then, as though the earth itself had drawn in a breath, the world erupted. Air raid sirens blared over Tokyo. Fighter jets launched from carriers in the Pacific. Governments ordered lockdowns, militaries scrambled. Social media melted down with fear and awe, hashtags proclaiming #gods have come and #judgment day within minutes. And then the voices came. They did not speak over radio waves or break into broadcasts. They spoke inside every human mind, in a tongue that was not a tongue, a soundless resonance that vibrated behind the eyes and down the spine. We are the Pantheon. We are your makers. Your guardians. Your judges. No human alive could pretend they had not heard. In cities across the globe, people dropped to their knees. Churches overflowed. Riots broke out in others. Some screamed that salvation had come. Others screamed that the end was here. At the Pentagon, Commander Rachel Hayes stood in the Situation Room, hands braced on the edge of the briefing table. The screens around her showed the monoliths from every angle, glowing like 5 suns over the earth. They're just sitting there, a general muttered, tapping a pencil against the table. They don't need to move, Rachel said, her voice low and steady. She was a tall woman in her late 30s, with sharp blue eyes and dark hair tied back in a no-nonsense knot. Years in space had honed her bearing to something almost mechanical, controlled, efficient. They've already won the first engagement. They made us listen. General Morrison looked up from the satellite feeds, his face pale. They called themselves our makers. Rachel didn't look away from the screen. Lots of invaders have called themselves gods. The room fell silent at that. 2 hours later, the Pantheon spoke again. This time, the words came with images, flashes of Geneva, the city bathed in golden light. 3 sunrises from now, the voice intoned, your leaders will come to the place you call Geneva. They will kneel. They will swear to uphold the laws of heaven. And then, in a voice colder than the vacuum of space. If they do not, your world will be made clean. The Situation Room erupted into chaos. Heads of state shouted over one another, arguments overlapping about diplomacy, surrender, retaliation. Rachel stood still, her mind already racing ahead. She could still feel the weight of that voice in her skull, as though the Pantheon were still there, watching her, waiting for her decision. Finally, General Morrison slammed his palm against the table. Enough. We can't win this fight. They shut down our entire nuclear grid with a flicker of light. Do you think we can resist that? Rachel turned toward him, jaw tight. Sir, with respect, if we kneel now, we'll never stand again. History doesn't remember the ones who surrendered quietly. This isn't about history, Morrison snapped. This is survival. It's the same thing, Rachel shot back. The room went dead quiet. Morrison stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled through his nose. The president has authorized 1 deployment. 1. And if this fails, it won't matter what any of us think. Rachel's heart thudded once, hard. She already knew what he was going to say. The USSF Valiant launches at 0200 hours. The Valiant. Humanity's most secret warship, a shadow project buried under layers of classification. The public didn't even know she existed, but every person in the room knew her reputation, a next-generation battlecruiser built not to fight nations, but to defend Earth itself. Rachel saluted crisply. I'll be on the bridge. 2 hours later, the Valiant sat at the edge of Cape Canaveral's military launch facility, gleaming under floodlights. She was a leviathan of black titanium and plasma shielding, nearly 2 kilometers long, her surface bristling with railguns, ion lances, and a singularity cannon so classified it wasn't even listed on her official schematics. Rachel walked up the gantry, helmet tucked under her arm, boots ringing against steel. She passed crew members as she went, technicians strapping in, gunners checking ammo feeds, engineers whispering final prayers. When she reached the bridge, Captain Marcus Kane was already there. Kane was a broad-shouldered man in his 40s, calm-eyed and quietly commanding. He turned as Rachel entered and gave her a thin smile. "Commander Hayes," he said. "You look like someone who just volunteered to punch a god in the face." Rachel took her station. "Sir, I've been waiting my whole life for a fair fight." Kane chuckled once, humorless. "Then let's hope they bleed." "Launch sequence green," reported Lieutenant Harper from navigation. "Engage," Kane ordered. The Valiant's engines roared to life, shaking the launch gantry as magnetic clamps released. She rose from the pad with the grace of a predator, plasma exhaust carving blue fire across the night sky. Within minutes, she punched through the atmosphere, the curve of the Earth falling away behind them. And there they were, the monoliths, hanging in the void, impossibly massive. They looked closer now, impossibly close. Each one pulsed faintly, as though alive, as though breathing. Rachel stared at them through the viewport, and for a heartbeat, she swore she could feel them staring back. And smiling. The Valiant slid through the darkness like a hunting shark, her black hull drinking in the light of distant stars. From the bridge, the Earth glowed faintly behind them, blue and fragile. Ahead, the nearest Pantheon monolith loomed, a titanic column of gold, suspended in the void as though gravity had no say over it. No one spoke as the ship closed the distance. Every eye was on the forward displays. Every breath seemed too loud. "Distance to target, 10,000 kilometers and closing," reported Lieutenant Harper from navigation. Captain Marcus Kane stood with hands clasped behind his back, his face carved from stone. Commander Rachel Hayes monitored the tactical board, her heart thudding in a slow, steady rhythm. "They haven't moved," Harper said quietly. "No weapon signatures detected." "They don't have to move," Rachel murmured. Kane's voice cut across the tension like a knife. "Take us in closer, Commander." "Aye, Captain." Rachel keyed the command. The deck plates vibrated under their feet as the Valiant's engines pushed her deeper into the Pantheon's shadow. At 5,000 kilometers, the monolith filled the entire forward view. Its golden surface rippled faintly, like sunlight on water, though no force in physics should have caused such motion. And then the voice returned. It wasn't through the comms system. It was inside their skulls, resonant and immense. "Children of Earth. You dare to bring weapons into heaven?" Every crew member froze, hands hovering over controls, eyes wide. Rachel gritted her teeth against the invasive echo, the sensation like a pressure deep in her bones. Kane stepped forward until he stood at the very center of the bridge. "You threaten our world," he said aloud, his voice steady. "You demanded we kneel. We came to give you our answer." The golden surface of the monolith pulsed once, and for a moment Rachel thought she felt amusement radiate from it, as though the structure itself found them trivial. "You cannot harm us." Kane's jaw tightened. "Weapons free," he ordered. Rachel's fingers flew across the console. Target locks acquired. Singularity cannon charged. "Fire," Kane said. The ship shuddered as the main weapon discharged. The singularity cannon did not fire a beam of light, it fired a wound in space, a lance of compressed gravity that tore across the void toward the monolith. For a second, nothing happened. And then the monolith shuddered. Its golden glow flared, then fractured, light rippling outward like glass struck by a hammer. "Direct hit," shouted Ensign Vasquez from sensors. "Structural stress reading off the charts, it's destabilizing." A ragged cheer broke across the bridge. But the Pantheon's voice returned, no longer calm. "You are arrogant. You are small. You will learn obedience." The monolith split open. Its golden surface peeled back like petals, revealing an interior so bright it hurt to look at, a cathedral of light, lattices of energy stretching across a hollow core. "Energy spike!" Vasquez cried. They're charging. The first beam hit before she could finish. The deck lurched as a spear of white-hot light slammed into the Valiant's forward shields, throwing half the crew from their chairs. Consoles spat sparks, alarms wailed. Shields down to 70%. Reactor strain climbing. Stabilize power flow. Rachel barked. The second beam came an instant later, this one hitting aft. The impact hurled Rachel against her console hard enough to bruise. Kane didn't flinch. Return fire. All batteries. The Valiant roared. Railguns spat streams of hypervelocity slugs. Ion lances carved blue fire through the darkness. Secondary missile pods released swarms of warheads that streaked toward the golden target. The singularity cannon charged again, whining like an angry god. The monolith answered in kind, lashing the void with more beams. Each strike lit the bridge with ghostly white glare. Port shields at 40%. Weapons grid alpha is offline. Rachel's fingers danced over controls, rerouting power, stabilizing what she could. The battle was a storm of light and fury, and the Valiant was right in its heart. Singularity cannon charged, Vasquez called. Fire again, Kane ordered. The second blast struck dead center. This time, the monolith did not just shudder, it cracked. A fissure split its surface, golden shards drifting into space. The glow faltered. They're breaking apart. One final railgun salvo slammed into the monolith's core, and with a blinding flash it imploded, collapsing inward until there was nothing left but glittering debris. For one suspended moment, the bridge went silent except for the sound of ragged breathing. "We did it," Harper whispered. "We actually did it." Rachel stared at the wreckage, her pulse still thundering. She wanted to cheer, but her tactical screen was already flashing red. "Captain," she said grimly, "we've got 4 more monoliths moving toward us. Fast." On the forward display, 4 golden titans ignited, their surfaces glowing brighter than ever. "Brace for return fire." The first volley hit like the fist of a god. Shields flared. The ship lurched. "We can't take this much longer." Kane's voice cut through the panic like steel. "Hold position," he said. "We finish what we started." Rachel's hands flew over the console, bringing every weapon back online she could. All batteries recharged. Singularity cannon at 60%. "Then we keep firing," Kane said. His eyes burned with the same fierce light as the battle outside. And so they did. The void burned with light. The Valiant dove hard, engines screaming as plasma beams tore past her hull, painting space in streaks of gold. Behind them, the shattered remains of the first Pantheon monolith glittered like divine ash, but the other 4 were already closing in, relentless, furious. "Multiple impacts across decks 7 through 9, cried Ensign Vasquez, voice cracking over the alarms. "Port shielding offline. Engineering reports reactor strain past safe levels." "Stabilize it," Captain Marcus Kane ordered, his voice the one calm thing on the bridge. Commander Rachel Hayes gripped the edge of her console to steady herself as the ship rolled through evasive maneuvers. Sparks spat from a nearby control panel, showering her shoulder with molten plastic. She didn't flinch. "We can't take them head-on, Captain," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Recommend Vector Alpha 7. We draw them toward the moon's shadow, use the terrain to break their firing solution." Kane glanced at her, then gave a short nod. "Do it." "Helm, Alpha 7, Rachel barked. "Aye, Commander." The Valiant banked hard, her massive frame groaning under the stress. Inertial dampeners fought to keep the crew in their seats as they slingshot toward the moon. Plasma fire streaked past, some glancing off what little shielding remained, others striking hull directly and leaving scars that glowed molten red. Damage control teams report fires on decks 5 and 8. "Contain them," Kane said, never raising his voice. "Commander Hayes, options?" Rachel swallowed hard. There was only one left. "We used the core," she said. The bridge went silent. Even the alarms seemed quieter for a moment. Lieutenant Harper turned in her seat. "Sir, if we deploy the Singularity Core at this range." I know, Rachel said sharply. Her knuckles were white against the console. But if we don't, those things burn Earth to bedrock. Kane looked out at the advancing monoliths. Their golden light pulsed brighter now, their silhouettes like divine judges chasing a fleeing sinner. He turned back to the crew. Prepare the core. No one argued. No one hesitated. The order was given, and the crew moved with grim efficiency. Rachel keyed in the multi-stage arming sequence, her fingers steady despite her pounding heart. Authorization codes confirmed. Core armed and primed. The Valiant swept into the moon's shadow, cutting off Earth's light. For a moment, the bridge was illuminated only by the glow of instruments and the cold, distant gleam of the monoliths closing in. This is as close as we get, Rachel said quietly. Understood, Kane replied. He took a deep breath, then looked around the bridge, meeting the eyes of each crew member one by one. This is it. If we fail, there won't be anyone left to finish the fight. Let's make sure humanity is still standing tomorrow. No one flinched. Release the core. The magnetic clamps disengaged, and the singularity core, a perfectly black sphere no larger than a torpedo, drifted free from the belly of the Valiant. For 3 long seconds, it spun silently. Then the containment field collapsed. Space tore open. A sphere of absolute darkness blossomed, stretching wider with impossible speed. Stars bent toward it, their light warping as gravity howled. The first Pantheon monolith was caught immediately, its golden surface stretching and twisting like taffy as it was dragged into the abyss. Event horizon expanding. Vasquez shouted over the roar of proximity alarms. Engines to maximum. Rachel ordered. Get us clear. The Valiant's thrusters flared blue, her entire frame vibrating as she fought to escape the singularity's pull. The crew held their breath as the other monoliths tried to break away, firing beams wildly, but the gravitational pull was absolute. One by one, they fell. The second monolith screamed in a frequency that bypassed the ears and went straight to the bones. The third flared so bright it blinded sensors before vanishing into nothing. The fourth, largest of them all, resisted longest, its golden surface cracking, fracturing, fighting until the last possible instant. Then it, too, was gone. And suddenly, there was silence. The singularity collapsed in on itself with a flash of light, leaving nothing but empty stars. No golden glow. No voice in their heads. Only the Valiant, battered and scarred, hanging alone in the void. Status report, Kane said softly. Shields completely fried, Rachel said after a moment. Hull integrity at 60%. Reactors stable but running hot. But, she allowed herself the smallest smile. We're alive. A ragged cheer broke out across the bridge. Some of the crew laughed, some cried, some just sat back in stunned silence. Kane lowered himself into his chair for the first time since the battle had begun. Then we tell them, he said. Rachel turned. Tell who? Kane nodded toward the pale blue glow of Earth. Everyone. Tell them what we did here tonight. Tell them that we stood in the face of gods and refused to kneel. Rachel stared at the view for a long moment. Below them, the Earth turned slowly, peaceful, oblivious to how close it had come to annihilation. We should get home, she said softly. Kane nodded. Helm, set course for Earth. As the Valiant came about, Rachel caught her reflection in the glass, hair singed, uniform scorched, eyes hollow but burning with fierce pride. Somewhere out there, maybe more of the Pantheon waited. Maybe there were other heavens scattered across the stars. But tonight, humanity had spoken a single truth into the void. No one owns us. And heaven had fallen.